Hey, it's Kyan. Today is a very exciting day. I'm going to be unboxing some brand new camera gear. I have fully switched from Canon to Sony, and I'm going to be unboxing my brand new camera and a few lenses and accessories for that camera, the Sony a7S III. This is my brand new main camera. I have fully switched over to Sony. I've sold all of my Canon camera gear over the past couple weeks, and actually, in the past week, I've been slowly getting some deliveries with some of my stuff. I have this a7S III camera, and then I have two lenses I'm going to be unboxing. I've got my brand new Sony 16 to 35 2.8. It is a G Master lens, and I'm extremely excited to get into all of this gear and check out this lens, as well as also this Sony 85mm 1.8. I'm going to be talking about why I chose this gear after I do the unboxings of all of this stuff. I'm going to be talking about just a general overview of the specs, but first we're going to unbox this stuff. I did also get two extra Sony batteries for my brand new a7S III, and I also got two of the very best Sony SD cards out there, the Sony Tough memory cards. They're actually part of the G series, and they are the highest capacity that they make as of now, which is 128 gigabytes. I've got two of these. The camera's got two card slots, so I'm going to be using both of those card slots pretty much 24/7 going forward. I did also get a few other smaller items as well. I got a filter adapter for my 85 1.8 that I'm super excited about. It's got a smaller filter thread, so I bought this step-up ring to use my 82mm filters on this 67mm lens. I did also get a Tiffin Black Pro Mist filter. I've been meaning to get one for a while, and I figured that this would be a pretty good time. Since I'm switching up all my gear, might as well just get this filter now as well. And then I also got an HDMI cable for my go-to on-camera small HD monitor. Alright, now I'm going to set these accessories off to the side. We'll get into that kind of stuff later. But first, let's unbox my brand new camera, the Sony a7S III. Got our warranty and packaging information here. A few accessories. Oh, okay, cool. Cable protector, probably USB-C. Here we go. Straight into the box. This is the neck strap for the Sony a7S III. I'm going to set this off to the side. Down in this compartment, I'm going to guess that this is, yes, it is the battery. My first a7S III battery. And now, the moment of truth. The most important piece of the puzzle. Right here, my brand new camera, the Sony a7S III. Oh my god, look at this thing. This is the Sony a7S III. Wow. I've had this thing sitting on my desk for a week as I waited for my lenses to finally arrive. I feel like a lot of the time these Sony mirrorless cameras are not that substantial feeling. Like in the hands, I've gotten the opportunity to kind of test out a bunch of Sony cameras in the past. This camera feels really substantial. Something I really like about this camera is, well, one, these things don't jingle or jangle, they don't rattle around at all. They actually made it tighter. I think maybe they're larger, I'm not sure. It also supports charging on the go with USB Type-C cables, which is just awesome for travel and on-the-go shooting, which I do quite frequently. And here you go, as I was talking about earlier, those two dual card slots. They actually support CF Express Type A and SD cards. This camera's awesome. It's an incredible camera. It's essentially everything that I want in a camera and more, and we're gonna get into that a little bit later. Now let's set this off to the side and get into some lenses. All right, my brand new, now main lens. It's a Sony lens, of course, the 16 to 35 2.8 G Master. Let's get straight into it. I have had 5 ultra wide-angle zoom lenses now. Never a Sony, but I've had 5 of these things now. Interestingly, this lens actually comes in a case. It's kind of cool. And here we go. My brand new Sony 16 to 35 millimeter lens. Here it is. Wow. so metally and just awesome. got some kind of strap and a lens hood in here, which I may end up using sometimes, but I don't use hoods a whole lot. And then here it is, front element. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. Let's go ahead and unbox this lens. My first Sony Prime. Wow, here it is. And here it is, the Sony 85mm f1.8. Now let's open up my two brand new Sony memory cards. It actually took a really long time for these to get into stock, so it's actually part of the reason why I was kind of delayed on this whole unboxing. But I wanted to have everything. First, Sony memory card. Here is the Sony TUF G Series UHS-2 V90 128GB SD card. These things are incredibly fast. And I have two of them, and they're identical, so I'm not going to spend time unboxing them both. Quick overview of my Tiffin black Promus filter that I also just got. Here it is, it's an 82mm thread, and I got the quarter version. It's the 82mm black Promus quarter filter. Now I'm going to unbox my two extra batteries for the A7S III. And here is the first one. And here is the second one. And now quickly, here is my Polar Pro 67 to 82mm step-up ring. And finally, I also got this Think Tank travel bag that I'm going to be bringing with me to Hawaii. Now that is everything that I had to unbox here today. I'm actually going to be going outside to talk about the rest, and I'll also do a specs overview and talk about why I switched out my gear. Hey, it's actually a few days later. It's now March 14th. Instead of immediately going outside and doing the second part of this video, I figured I would take a few days and get to set up my brand new camera, the A7S III, and be able to talk a little bit about my first impressions and stuff. I also wanted to give you a quick preview of what the video looks like out of this camera. It's pretty incredible. I ran through the entire menu and put in all my settings, and I also took some time to run some tests and experiment with the camera and the various different profiles and stuff, and I did end up sticking with S-Log3, S-Gamut3 Cine as I was planning to. So I'm actually going to switch over to this camera for the remainder of this video. I've been shooting on my RX105 in honor of this being an all-Sony video. And also here's my 85. It's a pretty incredible lens, actually. I've been really impressed with the results. So now I'm going to switch over from my go-to point-and-shoot, the RX105, to my brand new main camera, the Sony a7S III. Alright, I'm now shooting with my brand new main camera, the Sony a7S III, along with my Sony 16-35 2.8 G Master lens. Alright, this is what the picture looks like. I'm shooting in picture profile 8, which is S-Log3 and S-Gamut3 Cine. The color looks the best to me, and also the dynamic range appears to be the best in this profile out of any profile on the camera. Overall, this seems like the profile that I will be shooting in 24/7 for most of my stuff, which is what I was planning to do from the very beginning, like well before I even got this camera. So now that I've taken a few days and been able to set up the camera and get it to a place where I want it to be, at least initially, I'm now going to take some time to talk about why I got this camera over some other cameras, what gear I ended up selling. I'm also just going to do a general specs overview, and then also talk about some future accessories that I may be getting for this camera. So let's just jump straight in, going into the specs first. First of all, the sensor. This camera is definitely a video-focused camera, but it is still a hybrid camera, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the photo specs as well. This camera's got a 12-megapixel back-illuminated sensor, which is a little low resolution-wise for photography cameras. However, it's right on par for videography cameras, especially when you look at the cinema cameras. With less data for the sensor to read through, you're going to get much better rolling shutter performance, which is essentially non-existent in this camera. It is not a problem at all, which is extremely exciting for me, as that is definitely something that I have struggled with before in some previous cameras. This camera also offers 10-bit 422 color internally, which looks incredible, and it's also got S-Log3 for over 15 stops of dynamic range. It's also got 5-axis in-body image stabilization, including also an active image stabilization mode, which crops in by about 10%, and it's actually really, really good. This camera's actually got a slightly higher resolution sensor than 4K, so even with the 10% crop, you're still getting a true 4K resolution readout, which is really, really awesome. I won't have any problems using the active image stabilization mode for some more adverse conditions. However, most of the time I just will be using the standard in-body image stabilization, the IBIS system in this camera, which is actually really good already and doesn't crop in at all, of course. It also offers a fully articulating touchscreen, which is actually really, really helpful. I've been using Canon for years and I'm used to that now, but having it on a Sony camera is pretty surreal. This camera's also got exceptional noise performance. I'm continuously impressed with how well the video holds up at high ISOs, especially at 12,800, which is the unofficial second base ISO in S-Log3. This camera doesn't have any real-world overheating, which is amazing. I've been shooting for 20 minutes right now, no warnings. It's decent temperature-wise outside, and also you've got essentially unlimited recording with this camera. You are only limited by the battery power and also your storage space on your cards. There are no recording time limits at all. I could record for, well, however long until the cards are filled up. Also, like a lot of other Sony cameras, you've got S and Q mode, which is something I've been experimenting with a lot over the past few days, and I'm starting to like it a lot for time lapses and also for some really incredible slow motion straight out of the camera. Which reminds me, this camera does shoot at 4K up to 120 frames per second and 1080p up to 240 frames per second. And all of these formats are usable. They don't look like absolute crap. It actually looks really, really good, even at these super, super high frame rates. The 4K 120 is incredible. The quality is essentially the same as any other 4K recording option, which is mind-blowing. As for one of the final things, this camera does have a full HDMI port. I like using external monitors, and that is great for a more secure connection. And now this brings me to my final topic for this general overview of the specs of the A7S III, autofocus. Sony autofocus has always been great for photography. It's been really fast, really snappy, really accurate. But for video, it hasn't really ever been great. It's just been really fast and inconsistent. It hunts, maybe. It isn't smooth. It doesn't look like really nice. It doesn't look like Canon. But I am pleased to say that that is completely changed with this A7S III. The autofocus is incredible. It's also incredibly fast, accurate, and smooth. It's really, really good. In fact, right now I don't even have it anywhere near the fastest speeds or sensitivity settings. And that's it. And that's about half of it specs-wise. This is just an overview, some things that actually affect me in the real world that I'm going to talk about here. Figured I would just tell you a little bit about every area on this camera, and the autofocus is incredible. I'm really, really enjoying the autofocus system on this camera. Alright, we're almost done. Now I'm going to talk about why I chose this camera. With there being a lot of other cameras out there on the market right now, this seemed like the best camera for me. I'm a person who shoots about 80% video, 20% photo, and this camera perfectly matches that. The photos coming out of this camera are actually pretty incredible. As for the FX3, it looks like a really incredible camera. It's not for any photos of any kind. It's 100% video, which is great. But that isn't really for me, since I do about still 20% photos. But the FX3 is just 100% video and doesn't really make much sense for me. Like, for example, losing the viewfinder on that FX3 is a pretty big deal to me, since I like to use EVFs, especially for photography. And then as for the brand new Sony flagship camera, the Alpha 1, another camera I also considered, even though it's very, very expensive. It shoots incredible video, but it is definitely photography first. The video specs are essentially the same as the A7S III, except for the A1 does shoot 8K. If you want 8K or need 8K, nobody really needs 8K yet, but if you want 8K, then obviously you have to go for the A1. The A7S III has essentially everything else, and at that point, if you are mostly a video shooter, the A7S III is probably the better camera for you. It also has a flip-out screen, which they did not include with the A1, which was a major deciding factor for me. I see the A1 as being a really great photography camera. I see it definitely prioritizing sports and wildlife photographers. And then for the FX3, another great camera, essentially having the exact same specs. In fact, yeah, it's exactly the same internally as the A7S III. It's just built a little differently and lost the viewfinder, etc. The buttons are a little more video focused, that's nice, but losing the viewfinder is just something that I couldn't do. And then as for what gear I sold, well, I sold all of my Canon gear, except for one point-and-shoot camera, the G7X Mark II, which I'm essentially keeping as just something to sit on a shelf, a little trophy from all of my time with Canon, but I sold everything else. I sold my Canon EOS R, then I sold my 6D Mark II, I sold all my Canon glass, I sold all my Canon accessories. I'm essentially all Sony now. I still shoot GoPro for action cameras. I may switch over to Sony for action cameras too, like their RX0. And even though I did sell everything, it doesn't mean it wasn't hard. Like, I still loved my EOS R, great camera, and honestly, the saddest thing to sell for me was the RF 15-35. Loved that lens. Canon didn't end up making the camera body I thought they were going to make. A year ago when I bought into the EOS R system, I thought that Canon was going to make the R5 be everything that the A7S III became. Overall, I'm extremely excited to have fully switched over to Sony now. Very, very excited, and the results coming out of this camera, the actual real-world results, after plugging in all of my settings and spending a few days with it, they're pretty incredible. But alright, that concludes this video. Got to talk about everything that I wanted to talk about, and I've been shooting for 40 minutes. Wonderful. Editing's gonna be super fun. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed. This was a quick video showing the unboxing of all of my new gear. I also didn't get to talk much more about the accessories and things that I bought, but you got to see the unboxing, and I'm really excited about that Black Promus filter. Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. I'm also super excited about these lenses, like this 16-35 and this 85 that I've got, and I also can't wait to get more. Yes, I'm already shopping again. God. So thanks for watching this video. Thanks for coming along this whole journey with me. Got some very exciting stuff coming. Can't wait to use this camera more. Look out for future videos. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. So excited about this camera. And I've switched to Sony, just like that.